Thank you, Mr. Paniker, and also thank you, Ms. Fernandez, for that kind introduction, and thank you to Chemtech for for inviting me, and the opportunity to speak and share some thoughts, and also hear from other eminent panelists which are here. It was good to hear from Mr. Hazarika. You are a producer, you are a petrochemical producer. That is the future, and it's always good to hear your thought process. So I'm not prepared a presentation per se, so I'm just going to give some of my thoughts. And you know, as a panel discussion at any time, if you want to, interrupt or ask any questions, feel free. And this is something to you, Mr. Paniker, or any of the other panelists. So you very eloquently presented the case in front of us, how we are actually living through almost an energy transformation that's going to happen, and it has almost been talked about for a long time, but it suddenly feels very near. And to me, it almost has happened with, in the recent few years, there have been a lot of climate events that have happened in some parts of the world, which we understand now is because of, the climate change. And then the next one is also what is happening with, what happened with COVID, that it also gave a jolt to the societies. And that's where everywhere nowadays you hear about how we're going to do the energy transition, how we are going to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, and how you're going to make more petrochemicals. Well, petrochemicals were being talked about for quite some time anyway. So let me just take a step back and kind of talk about, historically, if you look at our industry, it basically started from crude oil, and of course the first thing that came out of it was various refining processes. The refining processes actually, they meant how are you going to make transportation fuel, and then some of the intermediates which came out, or some of the components from the gas fields that come out, we found that they make a wonderful feedstock for making some petrochemicals. And by petrochemicals, finally, what I mean is you are creating monomers, and which are going into polymers, and then the polymers, there was tremendous innovation coming up with different kind of grades and qualities and properties of these various polymers, that it's almost kind of like an endless. So that's where our industry has been. So our industry went through actually a big cycle. How you're going to maximize the refining potential. And the first thing that happened there was that, okay, you want to buy opportunity crudes. And by opportunity crude, it meant like it's a cheaper crude. So cheaper crude, that means it's actually not as nice a crude. It's got a much more heavier fraction to it. And typically it has, sometimes higher viscosity, but it definitely has higher contaminants like metals, and definitely high level of sulfur. So refinery configuration that has a capability of processing these nastier low price crudes could have a bigger price spread. So of course you would have higher processing costs, but ultimately your spread between the feed and product was enough that you could easily overcome that and improve your profitability. And that's exactly what Reliance has done beautifully, and has one of the most modern refineries that the world has today. So it kind of starts from that. And there was always an emphasis also on energy integration. But now the refinery is producing all kinds of streams, out of which the lighter hydrocarbons, and which are good for fuel as well as for petrochemicals, as well as naphtha, which is also good for fuel as petrochemicals. And then there is diesel. But then once you go kind of beyond diesel, the gas oils and fuel oils, they became increasingly less desirable, because the product upgrade wasn't there as much between the spread between the crude oil price versus that price. And then end of the day, we try to squeeze more and more out of it, and taking it all the way to delayed coking. Talk about delayed coking, you finally have a coke, which is a reject product. So you try to squeeze as much distillates out of the residue portion of your crude, and then you reject the coke, in which there is actually a negative price spread. But the idea was to monetize all the molecules to the extent that you can. And with that came actually a lot of technologies. And I kind of classify some of the technologies in two ways. Of course, a lot of technologies did involve cracking of it, because these were heavier molecules which you need to crack to lighter molecules in order to be able to be usable. So, a couple of options that I mean, one of the main options I talk about is the upgrade process involved, like carbon rejection. And the carbon rejection, of course, delayed coking is actually the ultimate bottom of the barrel kind of carbon rejection. So you making coke and then you do whatever you do with the coke, but then you're making some usable, coker gas oil, coker naphtha, whatever products that could be used, elsewhere. And then a better way of doing this thing, another carbon rejection technology was FCC. And FCC is taking your, the vacuum gas oil and all, it's actually allowing you to make that into distillates, like, FCC gasoline, beautiful, for as a motor spirit. Then, it makes LCO, which is not as good for diesel, but it's a good, blend stock for that after further processing. And of course, it would make the lighter ones. Now, last several years, or I would say last decade and maybe a longer, this realization that you need to maximize petrochemical feedstock really has kind of come up. And one of the first things that people thought about how I can reconfigure or repurpose my FCC units was how I can make that to the lighter gases. And the feed to FCC typically is going to be something like a gas oil or heavier. So if you can make lighter ones like the ethylene and propylene, then that is absolutely ideal. So that's where came like a wave of maybe technologies, and Lummus as a technology company does offer this technology in collaboration or together with Indian Oil, who invented the INMAX technology. So we offered that technology, and that technology allows you a very high yield of propylene. There are a number of units which are coming online in India, and latest one is going to be the Numaligarh refinery, NRL, that will be our INMAX unit. So that's an ideal way how you can upgrade. And that also kind of ties in the product flexibility. And these units, I'll tell you, are and will be designed such that depending on your need for it, whether you want more propylene, or if there is some time where there is not enough need for propylene, or your polypropylene unit is down and you cannot store the propylene, you can actually maximize gasoline. So that gives you that product flexibility between the two. Now, other than this carbon rejection route, I also like to talk about another route, which is the hydrogen addition route. And the hydrogen addition route actually is also very important as you go further and further down in the bottom of the barrel. Because what happens is that as you go towards heavier portion, the hydrogen content of the heavier portion of crude oil is significantly less. And if you want to upgrade something to a lighter portion, the only way you can do that is really by adding hydrogen to it. And that's where come a number of these hydroprocessing technologies. The primary ones amongst which I talk about as basically hydrocracking. So there is, of course, vacuum gas oil hydrocracking, VGO hydrocracking, which actually you can use to make, primarily diesel and naphtha. And then there is residue hydrocracking, where you can actually the vacuum residue and convert that to diesel and vacuum gas oil. So those technologies are also, have seen a number of refineries have added those units, including several refineries in India. For example, HPCL is adding a residue upgradation unit. NRL will also be adding a residue upgradation unit. And some IOCL refineries also have awarded residue upgradation units. So that also, in a way, I would talk about is like a product flexibility, because earlier a lot of these things would be going into fuel oil, but there is significant restriction on fuel oil, and then you cannot have this fuel oil the way you were making it earlier, because there is limitation on how much sulfur is allowed in that fuel oil. So that's that. Now, another way that people have found as to how we can, monetize these heavier products further was making something really valuable out of it. And one thing that is happening, especially IOCL is going in a big way in that, is they're going towards production of the lube oil based stocks. So the LOBS unit. So these lubricants are, the grade 2 and grade 3 lubricants are very valuable. India has been importing a lot of those, and the government has taken a decision that we're actually going to make these things ourselves since we have the feedstock. And it is just an extension of some of the hydroprocessing processes to go further into the ISO dewaxing and the hydro finishing. So those are some technologies that Lummus and our joint venture Chevron Lummus Global have been offering, and there are units coming up at various IOCL refineries like Haldia and Panipat and Gujarat. So that's an important thing. But now with that kind of focus now so far on refining, it brings me to now petrochemicals. And in petrochemicals, one thing that everyone has realized is that the feedstock for petrochemicals almost always comes from refining. So in the past, a lot of times there used to be separate locations for a petrochemical facility and a refining facility. So why not actually have these things together? And increasingly, you're seeing the move that most of the refineries in India are really focusing on how they can have integration with the petrochemical facility and how they can actually have a higher proportion of their feedstock crude oil go towards the petrochemical production. Now, talking about petrochemical production, you really have to talk about, what kind of feedstocks I'm making for it. So these are the same ones, which are the lighter gases which are coming out, the C2s, the C3s, the C4s, and of course the naphtha. That is the ideal feedstock when you talk about petrochemicals. And petrochemicals, the primary way of upgrading these things is by steam cracking. So there used to be earlier separate naphtha crackers and separate gas crackers. Now, increasingly what I've seen in the world that most of the new crackers which are coming around all over the world are really mixed feed crackers. So these have capability of cracking both a significantly wide variation of both naphtha as well as LPG. And on top of that, some are even having, ethane cracking together with it. So you're covering like all this range. And I think Mr. Hazarika also mentioned about it, that this advent of shale oil in the US especially has really made a lot of the C2s, ethane and propane available. So these can be used in all these cracking things to make petrochemicals. By petrochemicals, the most valuable petrochemicals that we see are ethylene and propylene, which then go into various grades of polypropylene and polyethylene. At the same time, there is a lot of C4s, and there is a big C4 chemistry. A lot of C4 molecules are also very valuable. Either like say butadiene is very valuable for making rubber. There is isobutylene is important in some specialized rubber processes, as well as, butene 1 is an ideal feedstock for also some as a co-monomer in some of the polymers. So how you can make these things. Now again, when you talk about mixed feed crackers, you're having like a wide range of feedstock, but at the same time, it's going to give you a wide range of products as well. So we talk about the product range. One thing that happens with a naphtha cracker is with naphtha cracker, you're going to make a lot of butadiene. Now butadiene is a very cyclical commodity, as we have seen. It is actually one of the commodities that coming out of a cracker, which shows like the very large price swings. So there are times in which butadiene production is very valuable. Sometimes it is not as valuable. So one way to increase the, monetize on that and still be very profitable is have the ability to produce the butadiene as well as hydrogenate this butadiene. You can do two things. One is you can do selective hydrogenation, which will make butenes. Those butenes can be used for different purposes. Or you can have total hydrogenation of those things, because the cracker is producing actually enough amount of hydrogen in itself. That hydrogen can be added back to that. And then you recycle these C4s back to the cracker in order to make more of your ethylene and propylene. So by having an optimum configuration of your cracker that way, you can you can protect yourself against the price swings in the butadiene market. Another important way that you can modulate the operation of cracker between ethylene and propylene is by having the cracker severity control. So that can allow you to change or modulate your propylene to ethylene ratio, oftentimes called as P by E ratio. So if you have a high severity cracker operation, you can actually make much more ethylene than propylene. So that means a lower P by E ratio. A low severity operation, on the other hand, will give you a higher P by E ratio. But oftentimes what happens is that it is not just the propylene and ethylene when you talk about naphtha crackers. It is actually also producing not only C4s, but a lot of pyrolysis gasoline. And all these products you need to have an outlet for. So when you're considering it as a operator, you have to think about where all these products are going to go. Ultimately, the most valuable products you're going to have out of this are really going to be your propylene and ethylene. So one very unique thing that we have in our arsenal is this olefin conversion technology, or metathesis, which will take the ethylene and butylene molecules together to make propylene. So that can allow you to modulate the production of your propylene on demand. So that gives you tremendous, product flexibility. So what I want to say is, I know we are kind of running fast on time. I want to give other people to talk about it as well. But these are some of the ideas that we need to consider as industry in order to provide the solutions to the operators to give this flexibility. So with that, Mr. Panikkar, you can have brief.
Thank you very much, Rajesh.